I'm sorry to take you back from the global presentation and the global public sphere to the French case. But since I'm living in France since 6 years, I already got their habits, so I do believe that France is the most important country in the world. And that's why I will focus on French case. But in fact, what I want to do is to move all the findings that were already here in the public sphere on the media, on the webs, and on the conversation, discussion on politics that were already done here in US by Homer, by Professor Char, on the French case. This is the paper that I'm writing with Chris Wells and with the help of Frédéric Cazor from CEVIPO. Let me very briefly talk about the French context. France is probably one of the countries in Europe which is most similar to US, with the strong role of president in the direct, who is elected in the direct suffrage for 5 years, so a little bit longer than here. But we also have, this is a difference, the important role of the prime minister who builds the government. In France, what we do have, we have a very strong tradition of political activism, to mention the one in the 18th century, but also now, last year, we had a very strong activism on the street, which was the Mariage pour tous, so the pro-gay movement, which gathered around 2,500 people, and maybe more important in numbers, Manif pour tous, so those who were fighting against the gay marriage, who, according to some sources, gather around 1 million people on the streets of Paris specifically. However, what is going on in France now is that there is a decreasing of formal participation. We have data from 2009. Only 2% of the society belong to party, and it is decreasing substantially from not very large number, but still substantially. 10% in cultural associations and 5% in social associations. Our study was performed in a very, very specific context, the 2012 presidential elections. As you know, in France, we have 2 rounds. We had 10 candidates, with 2 main candidates, Nicolas Sarkozy and François Hollande, with a very tight first round between the 2 main candidates. The context was, of course, the economic crisis, which was very visible still in France, which hit enormously the popularity of the Nicolas Sarkozy. What we also have in France is a very specific connection between media system and political elites. It's both on the personal and business level. They do go to the same schools, they do attend the same parties, they do know one another. They do all live in Paris, and they are very, very strongly connected with one another. This was especially a case for the Nicolas Sarkozy, who knows a lot of media owners. He does not know journalists, or he's not that close with the journalists, but he is very, very close to the owners of the media. What we have one variable which is on political discussion, so how often people discuss politics with whoever that would be. And we also ask 3 questions about how similar or different are the networks with whom you talk, so on political discussion. The websites that you use, how different are their points of view and how similar they are on the 3-point scale, and the same for the mass media. So what you can see here is that, in fact, the mass media and website use is a very similar environment. People do use it in a very, very similar way. What is different is the political discussion, where we do, in fact, meet people with different points of view than ours more often than within the media. Now, another graph which is similar to the first graph I showed you on the media patterns. However, here what we do, we add different kind of discussion and different kinds of usage of the environment. What you can see is we have a little bit down than the intense media usage. We have people who discuss politics intensively. And what they also do, which is quite interesting, is they do tend to use different websites, different media, and different people with whom they talk. On the other hand, we have people here who discuss on the medium level, who tend to use everything on the same level. The line that you see is interest in politics, with the lowest interest to the highest interest there. So as you can see, people who are discussing and who are discussing in the lower matter are more into the people, are the same or similar people as those who are using the competing media environment. To all that, just very, very quickly, I added all our dependent variables. So as you can see, the dependent variables are on non-extreme. They are rather in the center of our sample, meaning that there are no extreme people who are engaging very, very strongly. So the media do not have that much impact on how people are engaging in politics. Going to the political discussion, as I mentioned, we have a very strong effect of political discussion itself. However, the effects of what kind of environment you are using, here the comparison group is I talk only to the people with the same points of view. I watch media and I use websites which has the same point of view as me. What you can see here is that political knowledge is decreasing with the heterogeneity of your environment, of people with whom you discuss. Media and website, for the media there is no impact. There is interesting impact for the websites. So if you use websites with completely different points of view than yours, you are more likely to have political knowledge. So the difference of the usage of the online sources do implement political knowledge of people. However, both media and websites have negative effect on political engagement online and on social networks. So the more you use diverse sources of media information or website information, the less likely you are to engage. So this is a little bit in line with our echo chamber theory and assumption.
Thanks very much for this interesting talk. I think I got two questions. One is I found it really interesting to learn that in France, if I got it correctly, the likelihood of encountering cross-cutting information or information that counters my own views is higher in interpersonal discussions compared to the news media. So, of course, there's a big debate going on right now about selective exposure. My personal opinion is that most of the selective exposure, those selective exposure fears come from the United States, where you have actually a big channel, but in Europe we have public service television, which usually covers both sides, several sides, all parties.
Especially during the electoral period, because in France you have a special law of the equal time for all the candidates. So and no matter whether it's public or private. So it means that television needs to cover, and it's very strictly counted, needs to cover everyone in the same way.
Yeah. So, okay, now I see it, that in political discussion, same and different is actually much smaller than compared to news media and online. Okay.
What you come here is that this group is really very important here.
Yeah.
So you do have people with whom you talk who have different points of view than.
Yeah. This was my question. I would expect that from classic news media, it's much more likely to be exposed to content that really differs from your opinion. When I watch the news, this happens quite often because it covers all parties.
You mean here? Because here this would
Yeah.
be an echo chamber, and
Yeah.
I would expect here to have this
Yeah.
much higher than it is in fact.
Yeah.
While here, the difference.
Small, it's only a small. Maybe you can give some background on that. I just wondered about this. I found this really interesting, and I wondered about it because I thought in interpersonal discussion, the likelihood is much, much higher that I only discuss with people that really share my views. But it takes a. You need a certain motivation in order to discuss with people who are completely opposite to your own views.
Not in France.
Yeah. Okay, not in France. Okay, that's a.
In France, because we can differ. We can be friends and we can differ.
Okay, that's
So
cool.
It may be really a French way. We are. I mean, French people are very tolerant towards people who have different. They do allow. I found it interesting your presentation when you were saying that in France they are quarreling a lot. You should watch Polish television. This is another dimension of the discussion in the television. So for me, French debates is like the most cultural talk I have ever seen in my life. So that you have this. So it is very important to see also this cultural dimension of all that, and that there is this kind of tolerance between French people that they can tolerate different points of view, and they can talk with people with different points, that they are not ghettoing one another. If you go back in memory to the first slides on the outcomes of the first round of the elections, you can really see that, and this is something very, very interesting to see that people do vote for different candidates to show what they really think, which is impossible in US or in other countries where you have just very, very strong two-party system.